thing, I want a huge steering. Even with that big one, you're like,
oh, dude, you know how those old front end systems are. I'm sure that thing's got a whole hundred flavors.
So there's a fee you pay for if you're like not from America. Then there's another fee you pay.
I know why.
But then there's another steering. Right. So like you have to pay, so you gotta pay fees for being.
I saw all the students.
Separated because your taxes to the state that you're in pay for the school. So you get a lower.
And the modules look like it is driver's
Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Welcome, happy Monday. I'm just going to say for the record, I am not wearing an Alabama pattern. I just got out of a meeting. They were interviewing for department chair of supply chain. And someone made a comment in that meeting that I was wearing an Alabama pattern. And I'm like, no, Alabama does not own houndstooth. And this is not houndstooth. And so, no, I am not wearing Alabama. So, for the record, this is not Alabama. And we can talk about trademark and licensing and all that things, but they do not own that pattern. So, don't let that fool you. Okay, couple things I wanted to mention before we get started. First, does anyone have any questions? No? Okay, you read through the syllabus. You felt like it was pretty self-explanatory. You conducted the team preference survey. I have to download that. I haven't done that yet today. Morning got a little crazy. So I will do that and hopefully have teams. My goal is by later this week. The second thing I wanted to mention is for the exams, I'm debating whether or not I'm going to use Respondus Lockdown Browser or not, quite frankly, because the book is, or the exams are open note and open book. So have to access the Respondus Lockdown Browser though if we end up using it. I want to point this out to you because it dawned on me when a student, thankfully you have a fellow classmate who said, well, in student view, the lockdown browser isn't showing on the left-hand side. But yet in my view it is, and there's no way, I guess, to enable it in the student view now. So, because it is enabled for the course, but to get to that lockdown browser, you simply will hit quizzes, and then you can hit that dummy quiz, and it should, I don't know why it's not doing it here, but there should be a link to download the browser, maybe because the computer already has it. But the student who emailed me said it worked, so I'm trusting that it works. So there would be a download option. Yeah, maybe you have to hit take quiz, and then you can download the Respondus Lockdown Browser there. So that's how you access that. As of right now, I am thinking I'd use it for the exams, but I'm still thinking through a couple things there. The other thing I forgot to mention on day one is that, this class, we have quite a few online folks that are joining us as well. And a lot of times I'll see that some of them are working marketing professionals or whatever career they have, they end up dealing with a lot of marketing or marketing professionals too. So I have in Canvas a discussion option here, which is labeled Real World Marketing in Action. And I would love it if either any of you, any of the online folks, if you have a story or an example or something that we talk about in class really applies to something you're dealing with right now in your organization, to share that example with us. Because I think it can really bring to life some of the content that we talk about in class. And so it is set, I can't remember how I set it, but I set it in such a way that if you want to remain anonymous, you can. You don't need to have your name posted here. I just ask that you're professional in what you share. But anyhow, so it's just an option for you to share with the class, some of the things that we've talked about in a different context. So I hope maybe some of you might want to do that. And then sometimes we'll talk about these in class when it's appropriate. And when we have time too. Okay, so with that said, any other questions? Okay, let's jump in to let's start here. Just a quick refresher is that I want to mention again that there has been some changes in marketing thought over time. Marketing needs to evolve because customers evolve, our needs and wants change, the technology, the competitive environment, the external environment in general, if we think broadly to talk about, regulatory changes or technological changes, et cetera, cultural changes, all of that has led to changes in marketing over time. And while I talked about differences in marketing thought over time, please note that some of these practices still exist today. Like there are companies and organizations out there that still tend to have a production concept or a production sort of mindset. There are companies out there who still have that sort of aggressive selling mindset. Oftentimes this occurs for unsought goods where people feel or companies feel like customers need to be pushed because otherwise people wouldn't buy their products. Okay, this often deals with unsought goods like life insurance, cemetery plots. That sounds terrible to talk about, but they're things that people often don't actively look for. So we have those two mindsets, the different kind of thoughts in regards to how marketing should occur. And then we had the marketing concept era that focused on let's make what we can sell versus sell what we can make. Okay? That was a big difference here. And so focusing on what we can sell led to a very deep understanding of customers. What is it that customers really want? What is it they need? What are their needs? What are the benefits seeking? How can we create products and services or just in general offerings that align with those needs and wants in the marketplace that ultimately will hopefully lead us to be profitable? And so the marketing concept really began to focus on the customer. And this is, a branch off of or an extension of this marketing concept era in that now more companies are not just focusing on a one-time transaction. It's like, how can we keep that customer for life? And oftentimes, in any of your other classes, do you talk about customer lifetime value? We'll talk a little bit about it in here, but we're looking at what is the value of, did you have a comment?
I had a question.
Yeah.
Real quick. Back to the historical, like how some companies still will do like the production concept. Is that like industry specific, or is that like because the companies don't want to change like the way they're doing things?
Oh, it could be for a variety of reasons. But that's a great question. Some companies still just focus on, like when it comes to some commodities, like how can we produce as much as we want, cheapest as possible, and just get it out there. So that mindset does still exist, but more and more companies are starting to realize what are the long run implications of focusing on what we can produce or sell versus what is it that customers want? What can we easily sell? I think earlier in our last week's discussion, I had talked about when marketing's done so well, oftentimes the product will sell itself or the offering will sell itself. And that's really, kind of the goal here is that if we really understand our customers' needs and wants so well, we're going to have a product or an offering that likely is going to adapt over time because remember how I talked about customers change, needs change, wants change, the external environment changes. Companies that don't adapt tend to fall behind. And so companies who create these offerings and are constantly innovating to align with the changing customer needs oftentimes can end up creating long-run, mutually beneficial relationships with their customers. And so that's what the focus is, where we are today is that many more companies are focusing on kind of the long run implications of having a customer for an extended period of time. It's not just a one-time transaction approach with customers. And also, we have more and more companies focusing on societal implications, such as sustainability, the environment, things of that. Okay, so I talked a little bit about this slide here in that what I want the takeaway to be, and you'll see this, and the next slide's kind of another example too, is that there's many reasons, and there's been a lot of research suggesting different pathways for how a market orientation or a customer focus, or sometimes you might hear the words a firm's customer driven or customer oriented. They ultimately mean the same thing, is that the focus is on the customer. The company is prioritizing a deep understanding of the customer and his or her needs and wants. And so there's been a lot of different explanations put forth in terms of why having a customer orientation leads to long-run profitability or firm performance. And this was one example here, in that this group of scholars suggested that when a firm has a customer orientation, meaning they know their customers, they know those needs and wants, there's likely a lot of research that goes into understanding customers, they're going to create products that are innovative, that align with those needs and wants. And so ultimately, they're going to be innovative, they're going to create products that have value in the marketplace, and in turn, when you buy a product that meets your needs, you tend to like it, right? You tend to have high quality perceptions of it. It's just what I wanted. And ultimately, you're likely loyal. And again, loyalty can have different forms. Customer loyalty might be the idea of you're going to buy again and again. Or it could be that that company is now your preferred brand when needing to buy in that category. It could mean that you're going to tell other people about that particular product or organization. Ultimately, all types bring benefits to the firm, and through both quality and loyalty perceptions, the firm performs above other competitors. Okay, so it affects the firm's financial performance. Now, I want to give you an example that I read in the Wall Street Journal. It was either last week or the week before. And did anybody by chance read this article? It was January 2nd, so a little over a week ago. And it said, Vera Bradley goes back to their whimsical roots. Anyone read this? Anyone own a Vera Bradley product? Yeah, I do. Okay. When did y'all get your product?
Long time ago.
Long time ago?
Middle school.
Middle school? Okay, so I must have got mine, I'm thinking like 2010. Does that align with, and my mother-in-law gave me some of their bags. But anyhow, I think it's a great example of what we just talked about. So what's Vera Bradley known for?
Design, bold patterns.
Bold patterns, floral designs, bright colors, okay? Well, if you read through this article, and I can post the link on Canvas, you all have access to the Wall Street Journal, right? You know that you can get this for free, digitally, you don't need to pay for anything. If it prompts you to pay for something, something's wrong, okay? Because you get this through the university. So anyhow, so it talks about, yes, okay, they're the maker of quilted bags, and they went through a rebranding strategy where they were trying to reposition and change the brand. And what they were doing is essentially trying to modernize. In July of 2024, they were trying to modernize for today's consumer with a new logo, a new ambassador, and what ended up happening is that, here, this person from Small Caps Consumer Research said that they were trying to really change the brand. And in doing so, they kind of lost sight of their core customer. And in fact, later on, someone talks about, how did Vero just toss decades of loyal customers aside for this mess? If I wanted to buy plain, I'd just buy from Amazon. So I think that's really interesting because essentially the Vera Bradley was getting rid of these colorful designs, having more solid, basic purses, which I think it's hilarious that this one person said I would just buy something cheap on it. Or she didn't say cheap, but they would just buy it on Amazon. And so anyhow, and then to no surprise, look what happened to their sales. Okay? Big decline. And so now the company, I think it's a great example of how they really didn't focus on their core customer. They didn't look at, what do their customers really want? What are they known for? And how do you kind of bring that to life or reposition it in a way that still meets, if they're trying to tap this younger market, how do you still keep that alive and yet tap this younger market? So anyhow, they kind of lost touch with their core customer and ultimately led to a significant drop in sales. Now, another thing that I wanted to mention that's in this article is we talk about over-reliance on promotions. They also bring up Bath & Body Works. Okay? Can you guys think of some companies where you feel like they're giving promotions all the time? Bath & Body Works is certainly one. They're always running promotions. What else?
So I remember when I was in high school, I worked for JCPenney Outlet.
Okay.
And that was the big thing, was at first they always would have discounts. They would always send up the little flyer with the 25% off. And then they tried to go to not doing that. And I remember that people were very, very mad at that.
Yeah.
Upset about the no promotions.
Absolutely, yes.
Bed Bath & Beyond, they used to do that all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like 20% off or something.
So look at what happened to both those companies, When you're a company and you're really focusing on price and running these sales, to some extent you are training your customers to watch out for these sales and only buy during promotions. And that's not necessarily healthy for your brand and its financial performance. Okay? So promotions can successful promotions walk a fine line. And sometimes, running all of these sales or dollars off, whatever it may be, really might not be the best approach for the long run, for the long-term health of your organization. Because you're training customers to act only in certain cases. And I will tell you right now with Bath & Body Works, I only buy, they have a white pumpkin candle that I like in fall, and I like their, is it Fresh Balsam or something? They have a winter one. I don't buy candles the rest of the year. I only buy it in fall and in Christmas season. And I buy them as gifts because they're great gifts for teachers, bus drivers, all the things. And I am trained to when that $11.95 or $13.95 sale runs, because normally they're about $32 or anyone know what they are? I think they're $32-ish. So when I get that sale, I'm like, oh yeah, stocking up, there's the gifts. And it's so funny, my 8-year-old's like, Mommy, why do you always give these away? I'm like, well, because teachers like them. But anyhow, they have definitely trained me to buy only during, the time they're running their candle sales. But ultimately, they talk a little bit about how they were doing some collaborations with the Rockettes, getting on social media, kind of bringing back some of their like holiday-ish patterns, getting into anthropology, and doing some different things to try to attract the younger consumer. But I think it's a great example of how here their innovations fell short. They didn't align with their customer needs, and again, they really didn't have a solid understanding of their core customer, or really even think about how consumers would react. Now, and so ultimately, by not having this customer orientation, or by losing sight of your core customer, their performance suffered. Now, another model suggests that, again, there's couple other reasons why having a customer focus can lead to above average profits. And this theory suggests that by being customer focused, you're in close contact with customers, and by being in close contact with customers, you are knowing what they need and want. They're knowing how their needs or wants are changing. And you're also understanding competition. Oftentimes, customers talk and tell you what other companies are offering them. And also, customer-oriented companies tend to be aware of monitoring their competitors. What is their competition doing in terms of their product offerings, their product availability, their product pricing, and features of the products? And so how do the competitors perform along the needs and wants that are important to customers? And so by having this focus on the customer and keeping in mind what's happening with the external environment, or particularly your competition, you're hopefully, again, building these products that meet your customer needs better than your competition, and in turn producing high customer satisfaction. And satisfaction is different than loyalty. You can think of customer satisfaction as whether or not someone's expectations have been met. Okay? In marketing theory, we go so far to say that when customer satisfactions, when customer expectations are here and their expectations have been met, they're satisfied. When customers' expectations are here and their expectations are exceeded, they're delighted. Some might say very satisfied, or different words for it, but usually oftentimes you hear the word customer delight, and that simply means that the marketer exceeded those expectations in a favorable way. If you think about, I was going to get into a story about disconfirmation. Some people even call it disconfirmation, positive disconfirmation, so that here, again, the marketer or the product performed above those expectations. They disconfirmed those expectations in a positive way. Now, when customer expectations are not met, think product performance below expectations, that's where dissatisfaction comes into play. So like negative disconfirmation. So satisfaction can be thought of as always, like you want to meet customers' expectations. Okay? And so by having products that align with their needs, customers are satisfied, their expectations are met. In turn, it can generate loyalty. Again, the idea that the customer might buy more, might tell other people about it, might have this brand as the preferred brand, might spend more. In turn, the customer is retained. They don't turn over. They don't switch to a competitor. And then in turn, by retaining customers, you have a lower cost of marketing and sales expenses. Let's think about why are your more loyal customers resulting in lower costs? Why do you think that is? Yeah.
So you don't have to run
as many like promotions to get them to come, which means just keeping them as low.
Yes. So acquiring a new customer is oftentimes 5, maybe even 10 times more expensive than retaining an existing customer. Think about all the offers you get in the mail of firms who want your business. Does anyone get a flyer from HelloFresh? And what are they offering you? Like $170 off your first meal kit, or a free meal or free meals for a month, right? Those are new customer acquisition costs. Okay? You can think about it, probably LinkedIn gives you a free subscription if you do the premium for so long, or like subscription services when it comes to watching something online, right? They give you those free trials. That's at a cost to the firm. And so those are new customer acquisition costs. If you're retaining those loyal customers, you're having oftentimes lower customer acquisition costs because hopefully your loyal customers are getting you new business. Okay, you're not having to pay as much for those new customer acquisition costs. You also can think about what loyal customers are buying. Oftentimes your loyal customers are buying the more profitable, higher margin products. And they're buying lots of things, okay, not just one item. So their average transaction size might be higher. What else? They oftentimes can service themselves, okay? Loyal customers know where to find things, might know what exactly they need. They don't need as much employee assistance, okay? So there's many different ways in which by having high loyalty, higher retainment, ultimately is going to lead to lower marketing and sales expenses. And then in turn, if you reduce your expenses, your profits are going to be higher. Okay. And in thinking about this, there was a vacuum company that went bankrupt towards the end of last year. Anyone know which one did? A robot vacuum company? iRobot, yes. Okay. Now, if you have an iRobot, it's supposed to be in terms of okay, in terms of if you have the app, everything is still supposed to function. But let's think about iRobot for a minute. I think, first off, there's a lot of reasons why this company went bankrupt, okay? And I don't know that any one particular reason killed it, but there were a lot of things. One being, how many of you have an iRobot vacuum? I'm sorry, I don't want to say iRobot, but a robotic vacuum. Okay, what brands do you have?
iRobot.
Okay, he has iRobot, so I'm not freaking you out, please. Your app, everything's still supposed to work, yes.
Roborock.
Roborock, okay, and
I can't even remember.
maybe Shark, or a Eufy, or a Dream. Yep,
I think Roomba it's called.
that's iRobot,
Oh.
right? Isn't the
Yes.
Roomba iRobot? Okay. I'm not the vacuum expert. I have 2 Sharks and a Eufy, I think, is EUFY. How many of yours mop and vacuum? Or do you've got the, okay. Yours is just vacuum?
Just vacuum.
Okay. I'm debating whether I need to upgrade and get the mop version too. What?
I've never used it.
See, that's what so many people tell me is like, you think you're gonna use it, but then you don't use it. So, I don't have pets, but I do have 2 muddy boys that make me think maybe I need the mopping version. But anyhow, think about it. I just listed a ton of different brands, and there's a lot more too. I think there's a Bob Sweep. I was trying to look at other examples out there. But think about that. Yes, iRobot was like the pioneer in creating this type of product, But all of these other competitors are now in the market. And there's a ton more that I didn't even list, I'm sure. When you buy a vacuum, well, and I should say, as competitors entered the market, what do you think happened to prices? They dropped, right? And when you buy a vacuum, do you want a very expensive one? Or do you want to try to get the best deal? To each his own, right? I'm the type who would be thinking, okay, the money that I save on buying or getting a deal, I could use towards something else, okay? So I would be in the market for like, what's the best deal I could get on Black Friday on a vacuum? So anyhow, so iRobot faced increasing competition. Customer preferences or kind of the focus on price and deals probably shifted with more and more competitors. We also had some changes. What might be some regulatory changes that have affected iRobot? Yep.
Data privacy, because it's the way the robot will figure out how to vacuum your house is basically making a map of it.
Yeah.
People are not going to be very happy about the idea that you now have a map of their house.
Okay, so there are some data privacy concerns. So I'm thinking regulatory issues. The issue I'm talking about starts with a T. Tariffs. Yes. So iRobots, I believe, are made in Vietnam. And by the implementation of these tariffs, it cost the company, I think, $23 million last year. So they had some regulatory issues, customer issues, competitive issues, and then they had an acquisition, I think, that also failed because of some regulatory concerns as well. So ultimately, they, filed for bankruptcy. And I would say largely, if you're thinking about this in this example here, it's really because they lost sight. I would say these two things. If they could have created a product at potentially a lower price that still met the needs, I don't know, maybe manufactured in the US, that might be a challenge to shift operations that quickly, right? But you think about, there were so many different things that I think ultimately led to the company to declare bankruptcy. But I think some of those issues could have been addressed by focusing a little bit more on the customer and the competition. Okay. Here is an example. This is just kind of a very basic example. Yes?
Yeah. Before we move to this, there is a current trend of companies automating their customer service and customer support, right?
Automating their customer
Yes.
service and customer support, yep.
Yes. Would you still consider those companies customer-oriented?
Can the automation address the majority of customer wants and needs?
Basically, from my experience, being at both ends, if though they are automating it and then they have few headcounts to support customers as humans, but when sometimes you call these companies to receive a very fast support, you see the AI delaying you, wants to know, you get upset and then hang up the call. You might end up even switching if there is a competitive company, right? You might end up switching that if they have their customer support. And I also feel like, from my experience, sometimes you'll be talking with a customer and then accidentally you can just cross-sell or upsell a product to a customer based on interaction with you.
Yep.
Right? So I just wanted to know your view on.
Well, I think this is a great question, and you're making me think of when I had to call Walmart last week and the week before. I ordered what was it? It was called a mattress in a box. I've never done this before, but it's it comes in a box and it just like poof comes out. And I ordered it because it was a Black Friday special, ordered it in November. And still didn't show up. I was getting a little disagreement between the UPS guy told me it's lost in Easton, Pennsylvania. Walmart told me that UPS is not telling me the truth and that it's not lost and that they did not put 2 tracking numbers on it because UPS was telling me that, Walmart put or whoever the shipper was, put 2 tracking numbers on it. That's an indication of fraud. We must return it to the sender. So even if we found the package, ma'am, it's not going to your house. It's going back to the sender. Well, long story short, I eventually got my money back, but it took multiple calls. So, I did have their bot or their automated system try to solve, is this about your order number in blah, 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 and this purchase, and this, is your question still about this? So I get it, right? Like I automatically, when I hear that, agent is what I say to get to an agent. But I think, because I've done some research on chatbots myself, and I think if the chatbot aligns with your customer's needs. Now, there are certain segments of customers who don't want to talk to people. They just want to find their answer on their own, and if they can figure it out through a chatbot or through an automated system, they're happy. Because, I mean, think about how people oftentimes want to buy cars without interacting with the salesperson. So there are some core customers, or some customer groups, that actually an automated system or a chatbot approach works well. For other customer groups, it does not. And so that's why I would say, I hate to say the answer, it depends, but really my thoughts on them are, if you're looking at the customers you serve, and maybe there's multiple segments, you know, if you think about Walmart serves very different customer segments. If you can profile your customers in such a way that, you know, when this type of customer calls, this is what you direct them towards. When this customer calls, you direct them to a live agent. That is probably the best approach. Because that way you're servicing the customers in line with their needs. But there's also a lifetime value calculation there too. Because many firms, if we think about banking, for example, your customers with your high lifetime, like with high customer lifetime value, meaning like this customer has a very high lifetime value, meaning he or she is going to be very profitable for the company throughout his or her lifetime. Most of the time, you're going to direct them to a live agent versus send them through the automated system. Yep.
I was gonna say, also related to that, it just depends on like the level. So for example, like with Delta, if most of us call Delta, we are gonna get the automated system. My dad's Diamond Medallion, he automatically gets sent to a special line that will deal with any of his problems personally.
Yeah, so going back to that, lifetime value, his dad has a high customer lifetime value. He's getting redirected to a person. And so, so it really just depends. I'd say it depends on the segment. It depends on lifetime value calculation. There's a lot to consider, but great question. So here's just a very basic example of an income statement. And my point in sharing this with you is simply to show you how by retaining customers, if you're focusing on this customer orientation that we're talking about, this right here, like I said, has the potential to go up because, again, your loyal customers oftentimes are buying those high margin products. They're buying more from you. You're getting more share of their wallet. Okay, and they often are less costly to service. And so with higher customer retention, you're seeing those numbers go up. And likely you're seeing this number go down because you're spending less money to acquire new customers. Okay. So then ultimately, your net marketing contribution is going to be effective. So let me kind of walk you through what a net marketing contribution is. So if we have our sales or our revenues minus the cost of goods sold, okay, and you're left with your gross profit. So you think about sales as the dollars generated by a marketing strategy. And let's think about it that way. So you have your marketing strategy, you have your 4 Ps, and that strategy produced X amount of sales or profit. Okay. You now take away the costs of that strategy. Okay, so your marketing and sales expenses here can be thought of as kind of like your cost of that marketing strategy. Okay. And this could be things like, it could include salaries of your marketing team. It could include your promotion costs or your new customer acquisition costs. It could include some sort of freight expenses. There's a variety of different costs that could get looped into these marketing and sales expenses. Okay? But largely you will see this chunk go down if you have loyal customers because your new acquisition costs are lower. Okay? So you take your sales minus cost of goods sold minus the cost of the marketing strategy, and that leaves you with your net marketing contribution. And this can be thought of as the funds left over to pay for the remaining cost of your business. Okay? And this is really important. Sometimes we have what's referred to as an ROI when it comes to your net marketing contribution. And it's calculated by taking your net marketing contribution divided by your marketing and sales expenses times, 100. So in this case, I do some math here with my basic phone, or my basic calculator on my phone. You take 25 divided by 7. Equals 357%. We're not round. We're just going to go down to the whole number. Okay. So 357%. So what that means essentially is that if you have $1 invested in your marketing expenses, your cost of running this strategy, okay, you have $1 invested in the strategy, it's going to generate $3.57 in marketing profits. Now, why this is important is because from a marketer, when you're implementing new marketing strategies, your hope should eventually be to see this number or this number here, okay, go up, right? That essentially means that your strategy is benefiting the company. Now, companies can compare net marketing contributions or these ROI metrics across product lines, product categories, different segments of the market or geographical regions. It can be a very great comparison point. You could compare it across competitors, but oftentimes this information is not readily observable. Like you could not oftentimes access your competitors' financial information like those. Okay? But again, this example is just to show you that again, as you focus on retaining customers, you should hopefully see that your sales expenses are going to go down. Well, first off, your sales and your margins are likely going to go up. Your sales and your gross profit are likely going to go up. Your expenses are going to go down. And your net marketing contribution or your ROI should likely go up as well. And this is a great, great, great comparison point for large firms. Okay, moving on. This is covered in your book, and this idea of utility is simply that it's looking at how a particular offering satisfies the needs and wants of customers. And your book talks about 5 types of utility. In other words, kind of 5 common reasons why certain products or offerings are chosen in the marketplace. We'll talk about other reasons later in this course, but I do think these are very important, and I'm glad it's mentioned in your book. So, one reason why people oftentimes find a product as valuable and they choose it is because of its form, or what they refer to, what economists refer to as form utility. The idea that this product or service has specific features or design elements that meet the customer's needs. Okay, so think about, again, features, designs, form, attributes, those sort of things. And I think a great example of this, and it shows that people are willing to pay for products that have specific features, deals with the concept of Keurig and coffee. How many of you use a Keurig machine? You don't need to necessarily own one, but you might use it. Okay? How many of you own like a traditional coffee pot? I got one. I'm with you. Okay. Just the 3 of us? Okay. So why do some people choose a Keurig? Convenience?
I was gonna say, because I have an espresso.
Okay.
Like, it's similar, but the idea of, at least with Keurig, is also they have a lot of options for coffee for speed.
Okay. But like to what you have too, it's convenient, less cleaning for the most part. I question how many people actually descale the brewer for the Keurig. I question that. I've also read some bad things about Keurigs in hotel rooms, so I don't know if I could recommend you to use a Keurig in a hotel room. But anyhow, that said, you have your Keurig machine. How much is a pound of coffee? Let's say you're going to Publix, Walmart, I don't care where you grocery shop, but let's just say you're going to go buy a pound of coffee at the grocery store. Basic bag. How much are you paying?
So last time I bought coffee, I bought 5 pounds from Costco, and it was $13.50.
Okay, 5-pound bag at $13.50. What's the math on that? Someone do that. What are we averaging for a pound there? $2.70 a pound. Okay, so you're not at Costco. Let's just say you're going and buying a 1-pound bag. How much is that going to be?
Say 15. 15 total.
Oh, you think 15 total for a pound?
Oh, per pound. Oh.
Like, so if you're buying a pound of coffee,
No.
it might be. I feel like we all need to go up to Publix and check it out. But it's hard if Publix is running one of those BOGO sales that throws it off. But, you know, it's probably somewhere between $7 and $10 is my guess. Pound of coffee. I use a traditional machine. Now, Keurig. Well, we're not going to ask how many cups you need, K-cups you need to buy to get a pound of coffee. But how much is a pound of coffee gonna cost you in K-Cups?
It's probably gonna be a lot more because you're having to pay for the plastic or whatever it is for the individual cup.
That's right, there's a lot more when it comes to the packaging costs that the producers need to make up. So when Keurig was first introduced, I think it was around $60 per pound of coffee. So you could go to the store and buy a bag of coffee if you're using the old style version like me, or you could go spend $60 to buy a pound of those K-Cups, okay? Now, because of competition, reduced prices, all of that, I would probably say, now there's a range, right? Because with K-Cups, you can get more premium brands, right, of coffee, or you could get like the cheaper brands of those little, do you call them pods, cups? What do you call them? K-Pods? Yeah, pods. So you could get like, premium to non-premium versions, right? So the range is probably, I would say maybe $20 to $30. Anyone know? That's what I would guess. So the price has dropped, but you're still gonna pay more for that convenience that Keurig offers. But it's worth it to some people. The form is worth it. And so other examples of form utility might be like to-go packaging. Or I think back to when I was living by myself, I would buy a lot of like single cooked, like Smart Ones or Lean Cuisine or anything that was just kind of like one serving, which I can't stand them anymore now. But anyhow, or Amy's Frozen Dinners was another one. So it was just convenient for me because I didn't want to cook this huge meal and then have a ton of leftovers because I was living by myself. Other examples of form utility could be like what some luxury brands market, like having fine leather goods or certain attributes that are luxurious, okay, that are rare. So those are some other examples. Another one that came to mind to me, is, how many of you have heard of, I'm probably going to butcher this, but the Squircle? I think that's how you say it. Okay. Now, we test drove one of these, ended up getting another F-150 because Ford was running this tariff sale last April. They called it their friends and family discount, but it was really right after the tariffs were implemented because they had, I guess, enough inventory to run this promotion that we ended up going with a truck. Also, not just because of the price, but also the idea of throwing mulch in the bed of the truck, your Christmas tree in the bed of the truck, and all of the things that you don't have to worry about it getting dirty and cleaning and all of that. But we were considering a Wagoneer. And a Wagoneer has this, I think it's called Squircle design. And when we test drove it, the lady told me that the design, does anybody know why they have this design? Yeah.
Like race car drivers kind of have that sort
Well, maybe they do, I don't know, but
like
she
a
didn't mention
square.
that. But,
or like performance cars have that.
okay. So maybe to make it like, to either affect performance or to make you feel like you're riding a performance vehicle, driving it, maybe, I don't know. Anyone else? The lady told me that, the sales rep told me that they had this sort of design as one, you could see the dash better, but the primary design was so like for tall people, and now my husband is 6'5", 6'6", when you get into the vehicle and when you're driving, the flatness here doesn't like rub up on your knees as much as a circular design would. And so it makes it easier for taller individuals to not only get in and out of the car or Jeep, but in this case, it also makes them feel more comfortable when they drive because they don't have something rubbing up against their legs. Now, me as a mom, I would say, oh, that seems like it's safer too because you don't have any obstruction if you had to make a quick turn. So, I don't know, that's what the rep told me. But I definitely could see how it was easier for tall people to get in and out. And I can see the differences with the design. But in this case, that certainly could be form utility for some individuals. Another example I can think of is like resealable packaging with certain food products that make it easy for you to store something, your leftovers. Another one I can think of too is a washer. I know we talked about Maytag recently, and I would say something that really attracted me to the washer that I ended up buying is that, okay, I'm just gonna tell you, I know probably a lot of our online folks have kids. I don't know if any of you have kids, but kids often wet the bed, okay? And so I was constantly having to do, and so you have your big bulky sheets, you've got your big comforter, or your matelassé, or your coverlet, whatever you want to call it. You've got all of that bedding. And I'm like, I am getting a washer that has a big drum so that I can throw it all in there and it's easy, okay? And so that was why I went with a particular type or model of the washer. It had that form utility. It saved me time. It had the feature that would help me deal with some of the things that I was dealing with. Anyone else think of other examples of what comes to mind when we say form utility? Yeah.
With the coffee example, it's the idea of like ground versus beans. So when I said I bought 5 pounds, it was not 5 pounds of ground coffee, it was beans.
Mm-hmm.
Because I have my own grinder, but a lot of people would pay to just have the ground so it's easier for everyone. Because I have a French press, so it
Okay.
has to have a specific grind.
Mm-hmm.
That takes
Okay.
a lot of time and effort versus if you just have ground coffee in a more traditional machine versus the K-cup. So
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's form, certainly we're talking about convenience, time, money, features, so many things span this issue of form utility here. And I will say though, I have a friend who's a coffee connoisseur and they say always buy the beans too, because they said that coffee tastes the best when you grind the beans and drink it within 15 minutes. But that's what they say, I don't know, I'm not a coffee expert. Moving on to time utility. Time utility means the product offering, if I talk more broadly, the offering has value because it's available when you want it. Okay? So what comes to mind here when I say time utility? Having a product available when you want it. Mm-hmm. Streaming, yes. And yeah, I mean, I think back to the olden days when you couldn't record or you had to have a VCR and you were supposed to record it, which probably wasn't legal, but streaming didn't exist way back when. So definitely, great example.
Gas? Like for your car? Is that a point or is that
So-
a place?
Yeah, like where are those gas stations?
All along the route.
Like right off the interstate, right? So very convenient when you want it. You think about some of those fast food places right there. Yep.
Can we also say Amazon Prime? When I want the product delivered the next day or the same day, I can have it.
Yep. Okay. So like same day delivery.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you want it, it's there. So products that have time utility, people are often willing to pay more for. Okay. Great example with that. If you think about flights, okay, when are flights more expensive versus less expensive? People are generally going to pay more for the flights that are at the times that are convenient for them. And that's why your Christmas Day flights are probably going to be incredibly cheap because people often don't want to fly on Christmas Day. Okay, it doesn't have that time utility. Sometimes you can also think of like stores that are open 24/7. I once had a fire alarm go off in the middle of the night. It needed a 9-volt battery. Thank God neighborhood Walmart was open. So I was able to shut that thing off. I didn't think at the time to like pull it, all of that and disconnect it. But I drove to Walmart to get that 9-volt battery in the middle of the night to make that thing stop beeping. What else can I think of? Gas stations, concession stands. You know, when you're at the stadium, you're hungry, it happens to be right there. So ultimately, you know, the many, many different examples. Oh, one other one I have too. So you said same day delivery. Another one I can think of is the pediatric clinic. The reason why I chose a doctor at the pediatric clinic here in Auburn is because they have an after hours service. So they're open until I think 7 or 8 at night. And then they're open on the weekends, both Saturday and Sunday, they have set hours. And I chose a doctor there purely, I mean, that was a large part of my decision, is because I thought, you know what? When kids break a leg or fall off the monkey bars or need stitches or whatever it is, it's going to happen probably at home, at night, or on a weekend, okay? So rather than having to pay the ER copay of $350 or whatever it is now, I can pay the pediatric copay of, I think it's like $40. And so that to me was the best option, okay? And because I thought it had time utility. Place utility is about having the products where customers need it. So I like to think of Starbucks here. So for the online folks, if you haven't been to our business buildings, we have a Starbucks in the building next door in Louder Hall. And I like to joke about how Starbucks has great place utility because it has coffee where people are. Like my office is in Louder Hall, many classes are in Louder Hall, it's right there. But does it have time utility?
No.
Questionable, right? Because you don't know what the wait time might be, okay? Now you can order in the app, there's other things you can do now that they've kind of improved, I would say, on their time utility. But that's the difference, is that place utility is about where customers want it. Time utility is when they want it. So some other examples here that deal with place utility could be things like, well, and see, they can go hand in hand too. So like gas stations could, like we talked about off the interstate, it could be that the gas station is right on your route, so it's where you need it, and it's also when you need it too, right? So sometimes you'll see these overlap. But another example of place utility, because it's where you want it, is like as if a food truck just came up to the Louder parking lot or the Triple H parking lot here, right? You're hungry, you're right here, the truck's right here, and so it has good place utility. Another example could be rideshare services, that there happens to be a rideshare service right when you walk out of the airport. Now, I have been at some airports now that are making customers walk further away to go find a rideshare service provider. Have you guys been at some of those airports? Right? It's like they intentionally make it inconvenient for you. Oh no, this isn't good. Okay, says it wasn't active. So yeah, so things that are easy for you right there, I would say if you look at where some of the urgent care locations are. Okay, some of those urgent care locations have great place utility because they're right in like the heart of where you live. Okay, it doesn't take far for you to get to them. Now, possession utility, this is the type of utility that stems from the marketer or the firm making it easy for you to acquire the good or service. How are companies demonstrating possession utility? Okay, so they make it easy for you to acquire the product or the service.
Delivery.
What?
Delivery.
Delivery. Okay, so it could be, if you think about big furniture, we're going to talk about something that's inconvenient, right? they might make it easy for you. You might have heard of white glove service, but there are furniture companies where you order from them. Let's say you're ordering a sofa. They bring it to you and they set it all up for you, or they make the bed for you. And so that would be a great example of psychological utility. Another one that comes to mind is Ace Hardware with their grills. Does anybody know what Ace Hardware does with their grills? So if you buy a grill from them, and I don't know if it's a promotion they just run around Father's Day or if it's something they run all the time, is they will make the grill for you. They will assemble it if your grill requires assembly. Yep.
I was just gonna say like CarMax with like their delivery of their vehicles, you can buy online and they can show up here theoretically.
Great example, Carfax, making it easy to get you that vehicle. Yep.
Drive-throughs for like food, because it's just the speed. I guess that's also time.
Yeah, and see, these can overlap too.
Because like that would play a part when I had like 30 minutes for lunch of, well, what can I quickly get? Because there were better food options, but.
Oh, that's tough. Like I could see it as, well,
Uber Eats.
if we think about possession utility a couple of ways. I would say time, likely because it's when you want it and it's quick. But also think about how easy it is for you to order on the app, right? Like most of these fast food places have these order ahead, mobile orders, Chick-fil-A, right? I use that Chick-fil-A app very frequently, but I know McDonald's has one too, right? That's all possession utility. And that's like the idea of one-click ordering. Or how many of you have auto replenishment? Do you guys know what I'm talking about? Like Amazon has it, Chewy has it. What am I talking about here, folks?
It will automatically renew something when it gets to a certain point.
Yes, so Amazon, Chewy, anyone else? Can you guys think of anyone else? So I walked into, I was just at my sister-in-law's house over Christmas break. I'm looking at, now thank God she has a lot of closets, but I'm looking at her closets and I'm like, okay, she's got enough toilet paper to probably last her, I don't even know, but a very long time, okay? So these auto replenishment services, like on Amazon, they can auto-replenish certain types of products. So some are like toiletries, personal care items, diapers, I think even. But basically, they just auto-renew. They just send you so many every month. I don't have a pet, but I guarantee you my neighbor has auto-replenishment with Chewy because there's so many Chewy boxes on her doorstep that it must be like pet food or maybe it's cat litter. I don't know. But it's clearly that she has some sort of auto-replenishment system. But these are a great example of how some people find a lot of utility in that or a lot of value in that, is that it's making them so easy to acquire these products that they don't even need to order them. Okay, they just show up. Did you have a comment or example? Oh, I thought you might have had another idea. Some other examples could be things like rent to own or buy now, pay later. What do dealerships do?
Leases.
What do dealerships do with financing?
Oh, they do it in-house as well, where you can get like 0%.
0% financing. So they'll give you some sort of financing deals. What about retailers? How many of you have a Target? I think it's called a Circle card. It used to be called a Red card. Many retailers offer store credit cards. And now even Walmart, I think Walmart has a credit card. Amazon, I think, has a credit card. What do you think the average interest rate is on a retailer credit card? Kevin, what do you think?
Well, I know because I had to sell them for JCPenney. So it was like 26.997%.
JCPenney's is low.
Well, that was also like 2011,
Yeah.
so.
The average interest rate on a retailer credit card is probably somewhere between 30 and 31%. Okay? So the interest rate is really high on those retailer credit cards. But oftentimes, usually what happens is companies will say, okay, get this credit card, you'll get some sort of benefits, right? So you sign up for this retailer credit card, you might get X% off your order, or you might get special prices, other hosted benefits, free shipping, you name it. You might get certain gift cards. I remember back in the day, that's what many did. But usually there's some incentive, right? The retailer has to give you some incentive to sign up for a credit card. But then they make up for it because of these extremely high interest rates. Now back 20 plus years ago, when I used to work at Marshall Fields, I would oftentimes get customers to open up the Marshall Fields credit card because they'd be spending a lot of money on a prom dress. You know I don't know how much prom dresses are these days. I'm guessing $500. Does that sound about right? So at the time, you would save a certain percentage, maybe 10, maybe 20%, by opening up the credit card. But then if I was the customer, I would try to pay it off right away, because otherwise you're going to have this excessive fee or the excessive interest rate. But usually, again, there's a reason why these retailers offer these credit cards. It's because they can make a lot of money off customers. So I encourage you to be cautious when you get asked about these credit cards. Pay them off right away so you're not paying an excessive interest rate. But that, again, comes back to possession utility. Layaway could be another one. So a lot of different one-click ordering, different ways that makes it easy for customers to purchase. And lastly, we have psychological utility. And this gets at the type of utility or the value that customers find in how the product makes them feel. Okay? Maybe the product makes them feel happy and good, like they're having fun. Maybe it provides them peace of mind or reassurance. Maybe it makes the customer feel safe, comforted. Maybe it makes the customer feel like they have status or they're in the in group. Okay? What examples come to mind here? Products, yes.
Business class lounges.
Business class lounges, great example, right? So it's making someone feel like they have status or power or authority, or I'm better than everybody else, right? Okay?
So would that be for example, like a Rolex watch would be psychological? Because my watch shows time, but Rolex is a status symbol.
It definitely could provide psychological utility to some people.
What about something, I've noticed Rhode, the makeup brand, it's Hailey Bieber's brand.
Okay,
It's very popular. And if you are using hers, would that be psychological rather than using a dupe?
Okay, yeah, it could be. If it gives the customer some sort of psychological or emotional benefit.
Okay.
I think vehicles. A lot of times people feel like their vehicle is a status symbol. Okay, they focus not on how it gets them from here to there. They focus on how the vehicle makes them feel. And so psychological utility largely gets at this idea that people buy products not for what they do, but for what they mean. What does it mean to wear brand XYZ? Okay, or use brand XYZ. So psychological utility could be things like going to the Super Bowl or going to Disney World, right? Those are fun. Or for me, I think they would be fun. I've never been to a Super Bowl. But it also could be things like wearing a particular brand. Why are students, undergraduate students, walking around with a Starbucks cup versus a McDonald's cup? Assuming they were the same distance from Louder Hall. It could be everyday items that make a customer feel a certain way. It doesn't need to just be a luxury product or something that symbolizes status. Yep.
Looking at it from that perspective, can it also mean, say for instance, a company connects the purchase of goods to maybe volunteering, social impact initiatives, giving back. I think that can also make customers feel that sense of fulfillment, that sense of
Absolutely, absolutely. And if we talk about, societal responsibility, companies practicing, buying Tom's shoes might make you feel like, oh, I'm a good customer, I'm a good person, I'm, have a good moral conscience, So definitely ethics and morality can be tied to products too. And also I think, when I think about baby products, I was talking to a friend the other day, and there's now this product that I think a baby puts on his or her foot or leg, and it monitors their breathing, heart rate. Do you guys know what I'm talking about?
It's a sock.
It's a sock or what?
But for SIDS.
Yes, so it's to prevent SIDS, but I forget what it's called. I'm gonna have to look it up and I'll show you the next class. I didn't have that for my kids, but I found it interesting because my friend was talking about why she has it, and it gives her peace of mind. Okay, it gives her the sense of reassurance, like everything's gonna be okay. I can sleep at night. If something happens, I'm gonna find out about it. It's all gonna be okay. And so that product provides her psychological utility. Okay, I need to let you go. It's 12:16. Have a wonderful rest of your Monday. We will pick up here on Wednesday. Stay warm. It's much cooler today than last week.
That would have been a fun